Hey, what's happening? We got Jeff Preventure here, High Gear Automotive in Rochester, New Hampshire. I just thought I'd do a quick run through on what we did here. We got a Detroit TrueTrac carrier. It's 8.8 Ford 31 spline. This is for an '08 F-150 rear axle. And what we did here is pretty much reused the gear set. So we're going to go with the stock ring and pinion ratio. So we're going to leave that where it is. Got some new bearings on. Didn't even bother reusing bearings on the old carrier. Even if you can get them apart, you're probably going to mess them up doing it. And the amount of time and effort it takes, it's a hell of a lot easier just to press on some new bearings. They're not expensive at all. Bearing and race set, I think they're like 15, 20 bucks a piece. I got two of them. So we ended up doing it. So we got the carrier, mounted up the ring gear on it, took the old ring gear off, clean those bolt holes up really well. I use a can of red brake clean because it cuts through the grease a lot better. So red can CRC brake clean on the whole ring gear, inside the holes. Let it soak up for a second, then I hit it with the regular non-chlorinated because that leaves a nice dry, no film or anything. So I sprayed out with that after, and then I blew all the holes out. Reused the ring gear bolts. These Ford ring gear bolts are plenty strong. So took those out, hit them with the wire wheel, and same thing did with the ring gear. I sprayed them down with some red can brake clean, and then after that I hit them with the regular non-chlorinated, and then blew them all off with the compressed air. So blew all those out, blew the whole ring gear and everything off, and all those holes out, make sure they're clean and dry. Then we put the ring gear up onto the carrier, and you kind of have to line up your holes before you get the ring gear onto the carrier, because it's going to fit tight. The ring gear is going to fit real snug on this carrier, or it's supposed to. It should. If it doesn't, there's something wrong. So we got the ring gear on, kind of set it up onto the carrier, and then tried to line up the bolts. I had to tap it just a little bit with a brass mallet, and then get the bolts started. Got them all just started, a couple threads. Again, like I said, red Loctite on there. Got them all started, and then just went around and slowly tightened up each one at a time, going down, worked my way down a couple turns at a time. If you have a press you can put this in, it would work really good. I've done that before. Unfortunately, the press that I got now, this won't fit down into. It's not wide enough to fit this in there. So if you do that, then you can get your bolts started, get them all lined up where they're supposed to be. Put some press plates on here, protect this. You don't want to ruin this ring gear or chip it. But it really shouldn't take a lot of pressure anyways. And then you can evenly push the ring gear onto or up against the carrier here, the flange on the carrier. Probably the best way to do it. That way you don't have to worry about distorting anything or tweaking the ring gear or tweaking this flange on the carrier. But I couldn't do that. So just got all my bolts started with the red Loctite, a couple at a time, down, until eventually snugged up tight. Then I went around with the torque wrench. I had this sitting in the vise. I put a bar through the center here to hold it. And then I went around with my torque wrench and I torqued across, a cross pattern. And after I torque each one, I just hit it with the little paint marker so I know which ones I hit, just to make that easier. It's a good trick to use, like if you're torquing head bolts too. That way you don't mess up your sequence or forget where you are, lose track of where you're at. So I just tap it with a paint marker after I hit it so I know which ones I did and didn't do. If you're doing multiple torque sequences, you can just hit the other side of the bolt or tap it with a different color or whatever, but I didn't do that. So I just went around and torqued everything, 80 foot-pounds on this 8.8 rear. Got that torqued. The ABS ring, got to swap over. So we just lightly tap off the old ABS ring. I took the ring gear off first, and then I just tapped down on the old carrier. Tap it off just a little bit of time, Tap, 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 tap all the way around. You don't want to do it all at once in one shot and then bend the ring gear or the reluctor wheel here. So I did that to take it off and then put it back together. I just took this and just heated it up with the torch a little bit. I probably got a little bit warmer than I wanted to get. It started to blue up and discolor a little bit. I didn't really want it to get that hot. But once this is warm, you can take it and it'll actually drop right over the top. It'll land on top of the ring gear. So that's where it's supposed to be. It'll land on the ring gear and it'll just sit right on the top. It'll actually spin. This one actually spun around and floated around and stuff on there until the temperature of this and this kind of equalized and cooled off, and now it's on there tight. It won't move. I didn't even have to hammer it on. Literally just dropped it on and it was good to go. Then I did actually go around with the hammer after and kind of just to tap, just to verify it was on, but it was down there all the way. It was fine. So that's the orientation of it. You want to make sure that this is oriented correctly. Kind of the way I did it. So this kind of steps down. There's a little step inside here, and then like it sticks out on the other end just a little bit, I think. So pretty much the way I just paid attention to that was the bottom step kind of goes with the bottom step of the carrier. So kind of the reluctor sort of points down, and this fat end sort of points down. So that's how I judged where they go. So that's pretty much where we're at now. I'm just gonna clean out the diff a little bit. Gonna knock some new axle seals into the housing because the ones that were in there were really rusty. I'm surprised they weren't leaking yet. It looks like they almost probably rotted right through. So I'm gonna put some new seals in, put the carrier up in there, and then slide the axles in. But we'll get to that in a second. All right, so we got our carrier up inside the differential here. Got this all cleaned out. Cleaned this up. Gasket scraped the outside here. Buzz it off with the little 3M roll-lock whizzers there, real light, and clean it up again. A little extra brake clean on there. I'm going to blow out all of these holes, make sure there's no silicone or debris or oil or anything like that inside those. So make sure those are good and clean. Do all that before you actually put the carrier in. Then you can clean out the inside of the housing so any debris you get from cleaning can come out. Got the bearings on in there set, the races, the shims. Make sure you don't swap off your shims or your caps. You want to keep everything oriented where it belongs. Make sure these shims, they have a little chamfer on them. You want to make sure that little chamfered edge goes out. Want to clean underneath these caps, under the caps and inside where the bearings mount. There's going to be like a little residue in there and some kind of debris or I don't know. It's like metal, dust, powder, or whatever the hell it is. You want to make sure you clean all that out. That's going to actually take up space when you tighten up your caps. Any debris or anything you see in there is going to affect how that cap mounts. So you want to make sure those are all good and clean. Then you put your caps up on there, tighten those up. I believe those are 80 foot-pounds as well as the ring gear. So I'm going to put my other cap on, and we'll torque in this, and then set our axles in. Alright, so we got our axles back in there, get them pushed in all the way. So then we can get our C-clips back in there into the grooves. So we'll do that now, drop our clips in. Clip fits right in the groove there, into the axle shaft. So then I'll take our axle shaft and just kind of push it out. It goes right in. I'm going to do the one on the other side. clip in there, push that axle out, and then we'll put our spacer in that goes in between there, in between the two axles. Next up, we got our spacer here. So we're going to take our spacer, and that thing just drops down inside between the two axles, like so. Holds the axles in. And then we get this guy right here. That goes in like that. It should drop down enough where you can get to that groove. There's a snap ring that goes in there. So I'm going to grab a, I almost could probably put it in there by hand, but we'll grab a pair of snap ring pliers and we'll put our snap ring in. Alright, so we got our snap ring kind of set. I'm just going to kind of see if I can tap it down. There we go. And it went snap. Make sure she's seated in there all the way. So we're just going to use our non-chlorinated here. We get a good clean dry surface. I'm going to use our silicone to put our cover on. We got a new cover too. So I want to make sure of that. Anytime you use silicone, you want to make sure you have a perfectly clean, dry surface. So it looked pretty clean, but there's stuff coming off. Seems like this can't be clean enough. Alright, so we'll grab our cover. Alright, got our new cover on. Silicone seal, no massive amount sticking out the side. We put your cover up on there, kind of line your cover up with the bolt holes. Don't actually put it up to the differential. Start a couple bolts, get it lined up, then go around and start all of your bolts with the cover back slightly off. That way you keep the silicone from getting into the bolt hole and screwing up your torque. Once you get them all started in there, a few threads, then you can put it in. That way when you tighten it up, the silicone won't squeeze into the hole, into your bolt holes. So that's pretty much it. So diffs in, new seals, axles, it all feels good. Backlash feels good. Joe should be all set to go. No, it's a good little ramp.
Yeah.
That's a good call.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Oh,
Nice.
it's soft over there. That was a lot smoother though.